The notification sound pierced through the quiet of my apartment at 3:47 a.m. Another Venmo request. Another emergency. Another sleepless night wondering why I was the only one in my family who seemed to understand what the word no meant. But this time was different. This time I had a plan. Emma, you awake? The text from my younger sister Chloe came through immediately after the Venmo request. $800 for groceries and gas. Mom said you'd cover it since you got that raise. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the decline button. 6 months ago I would have paid it without question. 6 months ago I was still their personal ATM, dispensing cash on demand with a smile and a family-first attitude that was slowly killing me from the inside. But 6 months ago, I hadn't discovered the truth about where my money was really going. The family barbecue had seemed innocent enough. Mom insisted on having it at her house, the same cramped 2-bedroom where I'd grown up watching her struggle to pay bills while my father worked construction jobs that came and went like seasonal allergies. Now, at 28, I was the one with the stable marketing job, the one with the college degree, the one who made it. Which apparently meant I was also the one who paid for everything. Emma, sweetheart, can you grab some ice from the store? Mom had asked, not looking up from her phone. And maybe some of those fancy burgers? The ones Chloe likes. I'd nodded, mentally calculating the cost. $40, maybe $50. Not a big deal. Except it was never just one thing. Oh, and Emma, my older brother Jake called from the couch. Can you spot me 20 for gas? I'll pay you back Friday. Friday never came. It never did with Jake. As I drove to the store, my phone buzzed with another request. This time from my cousin Michael, who'd moved back in with his mom after his 3rd DUI. Hey cuz, can you help me out with my court fees? Just $300. I'm good for it. $300. On top of the groceries. On top of Jake's gas money. On top of the $500 I'd already sent Mom for her car payment this month. I pulled into the parking lot and sat there for a moment, engine running, hands gripping the steering wheel. When had I become the family bank? When had, can you help become, you owe us? The answer came to me as I walked through the automatic doors. Gradually. So gradually that I hadn't noticed the shift from occasional favors to constant demands. So gradually that I'd forgotten what it felt like to spend my own money on myself. I bought the ice and the burgers, plus a bottle of wine that cost more than Jake's gas money. A small rebellion, but mine. Back at the house, the scene was exactly what I'd expected. Jake lounging on the couch, beer in hand, talking loudly about how his boss had it out for him. Chloe showing off her new nails to Mom, who was admiring them like they were works of art. My Uncle Rick grilling burgers while complaining about his ex-wife's alimony payments. Emma. Mom's voice cut through the noise. There's my successful daughter. Come tell Rick about your promotion. I forced a smile and joined the conversation, but my mind was elsewhere. I was calculating. Adding up the requests, the loans, the emergency payments. The numbers were staggering. You know, Emma, Uncle Rick said, flipping a burger. It's nice to see someone in this family who's got their act together. Must be nice having all that extra money. Extra money. The phrase stuck in my throat like a bone. Speaking of which, Jake interrupted, did you get my Venmo? I really need that gas money. I looked at him, really looked at him. Designer sneakers that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. A gold chain that caught the light as he moved. A phone that was newer than mine. Your gas money, I repeated slowly. Yeah, $20. No big deal for you, right? No big deal. I'd heard those words so many times they'd lost all meaning. But suddenly, sitting there in my mother's backyard, surrounded by people who saw me as nothing more than a walking ATM, something inside me snapped. Actually, I said, standing up, it is a big deal. The conversation stopped. Everyone turned to look at me like I'd started speaking a foreign language. Emma. Mom's voice was cautious. What's wrong, honey? What's wrong? Where did I even start? I'm tired, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I'm tired of being the only one who pays for anything. I'm tired of being treated like a bank instead of a person. I'm tired of working 60-hour weeks so you can all live like you don't have jobs. Emma, that's not, Chloe started. Don't. I held up my hand. Don't tell me that's not what this is. When was the last time any of you asked how I was doing? When was the last time any of you invited me somewhere that didn't involve me paying for it? The silence was deafening. You're being dramatic, Jake said finally. We're family. Family helps each other. Helps each other? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. When have any of you helped me? When I was laid off last year and couldn't make rent, where were you? When I had that car accident and needed someone to drive me to physical therapy, where were you? That's different, Mom said quietly. You're the strong one. You don't need help. I don't need help because I don't ask for it. Because I learned a long time ago that asking this family for anything is like asking the desert for rain. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door. Emma, wait, Mom called after me. Don't leave angry. We can talk about this. I stopped and turned back. There's nothing to talk about. I'm done being your A-team. Find someone else to fund your lifestyle. I drove home in silence, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Had I really just blown up at my entire family? Had I really just told them off like that? My phone started buzzing immediately. Text after text, voicemail after voicemail. I ignored them all. That night I did something I hadn't done in years. I ordered takeout from my favorite restaurant, opened a bottle of wine, and sat on my couch without checking my phone. For the first time in months, I ate a meal without calculating how much it cost or whether I should be saving the money for someone else's emergency. It felt like freedom. The next morning I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. I scrolled through them over my coffee, watching the progression from hurt to anger to manipulation to threats. Mom, I can't believe you spoke to your family like that. I raised you better. Chloe, Emma, you're being so selfish. We never asked for anything we didn't need. Jake, whatever. I'll figure it out myself. Thanks for nothing. Uncle Rick, your mother is crying. Hope you're happy. But it was the last message that made me pause. It was from my cousin Sarah, Jake's older sister who'd moved to Oregon years ago and rarely came back for family events. Hey Em. Heard about yesterday. Good for you. I've been watching this happen for years and wondering when you'd finally snap. They've been taking advantage of you and everyone knows it. Stay strong. I stared at the message for a long time. Someone had noticed. Someone had seen what I'd been going through and recognized it for what it was. Over the next few days, the calls and texts became more desperate. Mom showed up at my apartment, tears in her eyes, talking about how family was supposed to stick together. Jake sent a long message about how he was sorry if I felt used, but he really did need help and wasn't I being a little dramatic? But it was Chloe's approach that really showed me how little they understood. She arrived at my office during lunch, dressed in the designer clothes I'd unknowingly paid for, carrying the expensive handbag I'd bought for her birthday. Emma, this is ridiculous, she said, sliding into the chair across from my desk. You're acting like we're strangers. We're family. Family doesn't treat each other like ATMs, I replied, not looking up from my computer. We don't treat you like an ATM. We know you're successful. We know you can afford to help. Can I? I finally looked at her. Chloe, do you know how much money I've given this family in the past year? She shifted uncomfortably. I don't keep track of. $18,000. The number hung in the air between us. $18,000 in loans that were never repaid, emergencies that weren't emergencies, and help that was really just subsidizing your lifestyle. Her face went pale. I didn't realize. You didn't realize because you didn't want to. None of you did. It was easier to see me as the family bank than as a person with my own financial goals and limits. But you make good money, she protested. You can afford it. That's not the point. I stood up, my patience finally exhausted. The point is that you never asked if I could afford it. You never asked if I minded. You just assumed that because I had money it was also yours. She left without another word, but I knew this wasn't over. That night I did something I'd been putting off for months. I went through my bank statements, my Venmo history, my credit card bills. I highlighted every transaction that had been a family favor and added them up. The total was staggering. Over the past 3 years I'd given my family almost $60,000. $60,000 that could have been my emergency fund, my vacation fund, my down payment on a house. $60,000 that had bought me nothing but resentment and the expectation that I'd keep giving. I made a decision that night. I opened a new checking account at a different bank. I changed my Venmo settings to private. I blocked my family's access to my financial accounts. And then I sat down to write a letter. The letter was 10 pages long. 10 pages of everything I'd wanted to say for years but never had the courage to voice. I wrote about the sleepless nights worrying about their problems. I wrote about the vacations I'd skipped and the clothes I'd gone without so I could fund their lifestyle. I wrote about the loneliness of being valued only for what I could provide, not for who I was. But most importantly, I wrote about the future. My future. The one where I wasn't responsible for everyone else's poor financial decisions. I printed 10 copies and mailed them to every family member. The response was immediate and predictable. My phone rang constantly. My mother showed up at my apartment building, camping out in the lobby until security had to escort her out. Jake sent increasingly angry messages about how I was destroying the family and abandoning everyone who loved me. But something interesting happened too. Other people started reaching out. My cousin Sarah called to tell me she'd cut ties with the family years ago for similar reasons. My high school friend Beth, who'd watched me struggle with family obligations for years, took me out to dinner to celebrate my Independence Day. Most surprisingly, my grandmother, my father's mother, who'd always been the quiet observer at family gatherings, called to tell me she was proud of me. "They've been bleeding you dry for years," she said in her matter-of-fact way. "I wondered when you'd finally stand up for yourself." "You saw it too?" I asked. "Honey, everyone saw it. They just didn't want to get involved. But you did the right thing. Your grandfather would be proud." 3 weeks after I sent the letters, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Emma? It's Jake." I waited, not trusting myself to speak. "Look, I read your letter." "Really read it. And I think I owe you an apology. A real one." I was so shocked I almost dropped the phone. "Jake. I know I've been a shit brother. I know I've taken advantage of you. I guess I thought you were okay with it. I thought you wanted to help." "I did want to help," I said slowly. "But help and exploitation aren't the same thing." "Yeah, I'm starting to figure that out." He paused. "I'm not calling to ask for money. I'm calling to say I'm sorry. And to tell you that I got a job. A real job. Full-time benefits, the whole thing." I felt tears prick my eyes. That's great, Jake. I probably should have done it years ago. It was easier to ask you for money than to figure my shit out. But that wasn't fair to you. It was the first real conversation I'd had with my brother in years. Not about money, not about emergencies, just two people talking. "Emma? Are you there?" "Yeah, I'm here. Do you think we could have dinner sometime? Like actual dinner where I pay? I know I probably don't deserve it, but I miss my sister." I wiped my eyes. "I'd like that." The call with Jake was the first crack in the wall I'd built around myself. Over the next few months, other family members started reaching out. Not all of them. Mom and Chloe were still convinced I was being selfish and dramatic. But enough to make me realize that cutting everyone off wasn't the answer. Uncle Rick called to apologize for his comment about my extra money, and to thank me for helping him see how his own financial irresponsibility was affecting his relationship with his kids. My cousin Michael, the one with the DUI problems, sent me a letter from rehab. He'd used my refusal to pay his court fees as a wake-up call to get his life together. Even my father, who'd been largely silent during the whole ordeal, called to tell me he was proud of me for setting boundaries. "I should have taught you how to say no," he said quietly. "I should have protected you from becoming the family bank. I failed you as a father." "Dad, you didn't fail me. You taught me to be generous and caring. Those aren't bad things." "They're not bad things," he agreed. "But they can become bad things if people take advantage of them. And we did. We all did." It wasn't a fairy tale ending. Mom and Chloe still occasionally sent passive-aggressive messages about how I'd abandoned the family. Jake sometimes slipped back into old patterns, catching himself just in time. There were still guilt trips and manipulation attempts. But there were also genuine relationships. Dinners with Jake where we talked about books and movies instead of money. Phone calls with my father where he asked about my life, not my bank account. Family gatherings where I wasn't expected to pay for everything. And most importantly, there was peace. For the first time in years, I could check my bank account without anxiety. I could make plans for the future without factoring in other people's financial crises. I could breathe. 6 months after the barbecue that changed everything, I did something I hadn't done in years. I booked a vacation. Not a weekend trip, not a budget getaway, but a real vacation. 2 weeks in Italy, staying in nice hotels, eating at good restaurants, buying souvenirs without calculating their cost. I posted a picture from Rome on Instagram and the comments were telling. My real friends were happy for me, excited to see me finally doing something for myself. But mixed in with the congratulations were passive-aggressive comments from family members about how nice it must be to have money to waste on travel. I deleted the comments and blocked the accounts. Not out of anger but out of self-preservation. I'd learned that protecting my peace was more important than protecting other people's feelings. On my last day in Rome, I sat in a cafe overlooking the Pantheon, drinking the best coffee I'd ever tasted and thinking about how far I'd come. A year ago, I would have been too guilty to take this trip. I would have convinced myself that the money should go to someone else's emergency, someone else's needs. Now I understood that my needs mattered too. My dreams mattered too. My financial security mattered too. My phone buzzed with a text from Jake. "How's Italy? That pasta looks amazing. Can't wait to hear about your trip when you get back." I smiled and typed back, "It's perfect. See you next week." No requests for money. No guilt trips. No manipulation. Just a brother who was happy to see his sister happy. I finished my coffee and walked back into the Roman sunshine, thinking about the future. My future. The one where I wasn't responsible for everyone else's choices, where I could be generous without being taken advantage of, where I could love my family without losing myself. It had taken me 28 years to learn how to say no. But once I did, I discovered something beautiful. Saying no to being used meant saying yes to being valued. Saying no to being a bank meant saying yes to being a person. Saying no to their expectations meant saying yes to my own dreams. And for the first time in years, those dreams felt possible. The plane lifted off from Rome, carrying me back to a life that was finally my own. As we climbed above the clouds, I thought about the girl who'd walked into that barbecue 6 months ago. The one who'd been so afraid of disappointing people that she'd forgotten how to protect herself. She was gone now, replaced by someone stronger. Someone who understood that the best way to love your family isn't to let them destroy you, but to show them what healthy boundaries look like. I was going home, but for the first time in years I was going home to myself. The last text I sent before the plane took off was to my cousin Sarah, the one who'd supported me from the beginning. "Thank you for reminding me that I deserved better. I finally believe it." Her response came through just as we reached cruising altitude. "Welcome to the rest of your life, Em. It's going to be amazing." I put my phone away and closed my eyes, feeling the plane carry me toward whatever came next. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of the future. I was excited about it, because it was mine.